All right, folks, hello and welcome back to online English class. Hope you guys are doing well today. Today we're going to continue the process of talking through the focus points that your quarter four essay is going to be evaluated according to. Before we get into that, let's talk through the top of the week announcements. First and foremost, make sure that you are returning your books to me when you are done with your work for the semester. Second, make sure that you are accomplishing your daily discussion grade procedure throughout the course of this last week of school. And third, make sure that you understand that your quarter four essay is due, should be submitted to me in an attachment from May 18th to May 22nd. All right, so you can use this week to fine tune your essay, tighten down the screws, batten down the hatches, and make sure that that essay is airtight in preparation for your submission of this, your last assignment of the year. Okay, so without any further ado, let's go ahead and jump back into our work through the focus points. Now, today, I'm not going to tell you anything that you don't know. I'm not. This should be a relatively brief class, but I do want to raise some points about how your essay should be structured in order for you to maximize your success on this assignment. Okay, so yesterday we talked through focus points A and B. All right, we talked about the importance of your essay being put through the writing and editing process, which requires you, first and foremost, to generate ideas about the prompt. So yesterday we went back into the prompt, we analyzed the prompt, and we thought about how you can generate an essay that authentically answers the question raised by the prompt itself. Okay, if you do not do that, then you already are setting yourself at a major disadvantage because you're not going to write an essay that effectively accomplishes the task that has been asked by me for you to do. Okay, so in order to do it effectively, you have to generate ideas about the prompt. You have to spend some time with that prompt and know precisely what it is that you are being asked to do. All right, we looked at evidence of that in this sample essay. Okay, so this sample essay not only responds to the prompt, but it also responds to the prompt according to the basic details required of the essay. It is 3 to 5 pages. It is an argumentative essay, and it doesn't use any outside resources because it doesn't need to. Okay, it is typed in 12-point Times New Roman or Arial font. It was double-spaced until I single-spaced it for the sake of printing it out, which obviously I'm not printing it out now, but it's still the same document. It follows all the style rules, and it includes an MLA works cited page. Is the works cited page long? No, it's really short. There's just one thing on it, right? One novel. It's the Dover Publication 1994 edition of Frankenstein because that's the only text that the student cited from over the course of the essay. But does this essay adhere to all of the details required of it by the prompt? Yes. Does it answer the question raised by the prompt? Yes. What's it missing? It needs a header. But is that like the end of the world? No. All right. That's not going to alter a letter grade's worth. It might, I might shave off a few points. It might be the difference between 100 and a 99, but it's not a huge oversight. Overall, the student has followed the basic details required by the prompt. So that's good. Go and do likewise. Now, more specifically, yesterday we talked about the interpretive thesis statement, where it's placed, if it's clearly stated, and if it is defensible. All right. Well, when we go to the last few sentences of the first paragraph, we find that the student has introduced the concept that Frankenstein is a book that what? Belongs in the literary canon. In other words, it's good. So for our canon evaluation, Frankenstein is being evaluated how? Positively. Well, why? Why does it belong there? Because just simply answering that question is not a well-developed thesis. Yes, it does assert something that needs to be proven, but it's not well developed. All right, so to develop this, the student then says because it offers wise insights about what? All right, so it offers some kind of wisdom that's valuable for students to engage with. That's what the student is arguing, but again, the question is raised, what kind of wise insights? Well, the wisdom of engaging in meaningful and intimate relationships in which one confesses their wrongdoings and deepest fears rather than suppressing them. All right, this wise counsel is evident where? That's my next logical question. Where is that wise counsel communicated in the novel? Through Frankenstein's relationship with his creature. Okay, so, in other words, has the student generated ideas about the prompt and followed all of the basic requirements for it? Yes. Have they developed a central claim that answers the question required of them to answer in the prompt? Yes. Is that central claim properly placed, clearly stated, and defensible, offering an engaging claim that fulfills requirements of the prompt? Yes. So, in terms of focus points A and B, how's the student doing? They are doing well, which is no surprise since this is the sample essay. Okay, and this is a student essay. It was written last year, all right, by a student just like you. Okay, you absolutely can do this same kind of work. All right, just requires a little bit of thoughtful engagement. Now, the second two body or focus points that we're going to look briefly at that should be very, very clear and very easy to understand is the nature of the body paragraphs in the essay and the way that the body paragraphs are organized. Okay, so what is the point of a body paragraph in an essay like this? Well, as is true of all body paragraphs, the body paragraphs in this essay are meant to do what? Support the head of the essay. What's the head of the essay? The thesis. What did the thesis say? That Frankenstein, essentially, is a good book that belongs in the literary canon because it offers these wise insights, right, described here, through the characterization of Frankenstein's relationship with his creature. So what is it reasonable, logical for the body paragraphs to go about doing? Obviously, to analyze Frankenstein's relationship with his creature and explain how that relationship illustrates this wisdom. So, guess what the body paragraphs do? Well, each one of them, as they should be structured, has a topic sentence, evidence from the text, and then commentary or explanation of that evidence that supports the thesis. Okay, so notice the structure of this in this paragraph. Okay, the creature is a creation of Victor's repressed fears, which makes Frankenstein horrified of the creature for the rest of his life. As the monster comes alive, Victor explains, and then we get into some pieces of text that help illustrate Victor's fear of this horrible monster and explains why the creature is so horrifying specifically to Victor. It's not just because he's ugly, but the thing that makes the monster so ugly to Victor is because he is a representation of the parts of Victor's self that he does not want to come in contact with. So when the creature symbolically lifts the curtains of Frankenstein's heart and approaches him in that sort of creepy moment in the novel in which Frankenstein's creature is looking in on Frankenstein as he is sleeping, and he pulls back the curtains of his bed and he reaches out for him, and Frankenstein immediately interprets that as a threat, as the fact that the creature is trying to strangle him, to kill him, which he's certainly not trying to do. Okay, so we go from an assertion about what Victor and the creature's relationship means, and then we illustrate how we know that by analyzing and commenting on the text, and then check this out, right? We transition into the significance of what the student has analyzed. Frankenstein continues to decline any communion with the creature in order to preserve his unacknowledged self. Here it is evident that one, meaning the reader, the person, now we're talking about what again? Wisdom. Here it is evident that one should not distance themselves in relationships. From the beginning of a deep, intimate relationship, one ought to share their fears and discuss their sin. This is ultimate confession that is vulnerable and draws people closer to one another. Okay, what's the next body paragraph going to do? Oh, it's going to take us to another area of Frankenstein's relationship with the creature as it develops in the course of the novel, and then discuss the wisdom that we can deduce or that we can glean from observing carefully and discussing this element of their relationship. Okay, so it leads him further into the process of repressing his fears. The student then discusses some ways in which that occurs. All right. Instead of keeping everything to oneself and refusing to confess one's wrong to another person, the novel counsels that one should engage in vulnerable friendship where there is a foundation of trust, so that one can share one's inner self. Until this is done, one will live a life that leads to depression because of all one's fears are not being shared or discussed. Rather, one remains in isolation with an unhealthy mind. Okay, then we finally move into the end portion of the novel, all right, in which Victor comes to the tragic end, dying of exposure to the elements chasing this creature, and ultimately having an unresolved relationship with him. The student then says, in conclusion, Victor's failure and refusal to acknowledge the creature and his inner self lead him and the creature to destruction. All right, so very simply, do the body paragraphs support the thesis? Yes. Have they been organized, all right, logically in an organizational pattern that supports the thesis? Okay, yes, right? Notice we move from the beginning of their relationship to the middle of their relationship to the end. All right, but not only do we discuss the development of the relationship, at the end of each paragraph, what does the student return to? Discussing the wisdom that can be gleaned from analyzing and observing this relationship. And that wisdom is ultimately summed up in the fact that meaningful and intimate relationships require the confession of wrongdoings instead of suppressing them. So all of the body paragraphs point back to the validity of the original assertion. We call that a logically coherent essay. Okay? Now, the last element of your logical organizational pattern deals with effective introductions and conclusions. Is the introduction effective? Yes. Why? Because it leads to the what? To the thesis. Is the conclusion effective? Yes. Why? Because it reiterates the validity of the thesis statement. Okay? Uh, Essentially, guys, this is a portrait of an essay that, again, this essay is not like rocket science. It's not incredibly sophisticated. It isn't even the best essay I've ever had about this topic. In fact, far from it. But is it effective? Is it logical? Is it reasonable? Yes. Does it show clear signs that it has engaged in the writing and editing process? Yes. Does it have a thesis statement that's properly placed and defensible and clearly stated? Yes. Do the body paragraphs support that thesis statement? Yes. Do they support it in a logical, organizational pattern that moves from one point to the next point to the last point, all supporting the thesis statement? Yes. Okay. Uh, Go and do likewise in your own essay. Tomorrow we'll talk about formatting and citing in-text quotations and introducing quotations from the text that are grammatically correct and coherent. All right. Have an excellent day.